Thank you. Call to order the Greenwood Planning Commission, Greenwood Advisory Plan Commission meeting for October 11th, 2021. First order of business is the approval of the minutes.
I actually have a correction from the minutes. 3 of the items on here, I actually voted for, but they don't have me voting either way. So, I don't know if you want to correct that. You know which ones I'm talking about?
If you see me after the meeting,
I will do that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
After the amendments, I move that the minutes be accepted. Second.
Second. Okay. Motion by Mr. Dine, second by Mr. Schrader. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. 1%.
I was going to say, if I know anything about what you
All right. Second order of business is special request for continuances. Understand we have one for docket PC 2021-098, the Kemp rezone.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. My name is Brian Toohey. I represent Lennar Homes of Indiana in this petition. That's the petitioner. Here with me is Tony Facade, who is in charge of their land development. Thank you for hearing our request. We would respectfully request that this case be moved to your October 25th, 2021 hearing date. That will give us time to get our traffic report, which we just received and got completed, to Dale for his review, and also we'll give him time to review the staff report. And I don't think we have any issues with it, but we just thought maybe a 2-week continuance would be best.
Okay.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Mr. Dine. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Yes.
Thank you. We'll see you in October 25th.
See you in a couple weeks.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Next order of business, old business, PC 2021-086, text amendment certification.
Yes, so we recently saw a series of text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance. Those went to council where they passed. Upon reading the ordinance for 3rd or 4th time, realized that steel was not an included building material for accessory structures. The intent of modifying the accessory structure language in the ordinance was that is one of the biggest drivers of cases to the BZA. So if we do not include steel as a allowable building material, we are not reducing our BZA caseload. So there was an amendment on the floor to add that at council, which passed unanimously, but now it needs to come back to this body for certification of that amendment.
Okay, so it's just a matter of adding steel.
actually what happens is, for Mr. King, who's never done this before, if you have a text amendment to your zoning ordinance, the UDO, that changes what was certified by the Plan Commission. Once the ordinance is passed as amended by the Common Council, they have to return it back with an explanation of the reason for doing so. And that was returned to the Plan Commission. It was a letter from the council president explaining, as Dale explained, because there was a large number of variances for that, and they wanted to change it so that it was pretty much in line with what people are actually doing and what the BZA is granting. When it is returned to you, you have 2 choices. You can approve the ordinance as amended or disapprove it as amended. You don't actually amend it and add steel. They've done that. You have those 2 options. If you do approve it and it's certified, then the ordinance is effective as of the date you certify it. If you disapprove it and do not agree, then your disapproval is certified back to the Common Council, and they have to vote one more time on it if they want to adopt it with that amendment in there. So your proposed motion is either to approve the ordinance as they amended it or to disapprove it.
Motion prepared. Any questions or comments on what the council's asking for?
Mr. President, I move that the Greenwood Common Council Ordinance 21-44 regarding text amendments to the Unified Development Ordinance as amended and adopted by the Common Council October 4th, 2021 be approved, and to direct the planning director to report the approval to the Greenwood Common Council in the Plan Commission's behalf.
Second.
Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Mr. Walker. All those in favor signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you all.
Okay. Any old business from the floor? Seeing none. New business.
Oh, I think they need
Okay.
to by Zoom.
I see. All right. So the first under new business is PC 2021-021 Worthville Commons Center Lot 2 easement vacation. Is there a representative for GLA Properties?
Carl Stout is with GLA, but he's on.
Carl.
You can hear us, Mr. Stout. I think you're muted.
Can you hear me?
We
Yes.
can now.
I'm with the Garrett Companies.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
sorry.
Uh,
Well, I can explain this one to you. So, Skinnell Properties is building a 4 to 5 building complex at the southeast corner of Allen and Collins.
Okay.
And they're working on their second, third lots right now. Halfway through construction, they have landed a tenant for building 2. They've not started on building 3 yet. The new tenant does not desire to have this side parking lot that was originally contemplated. It was a truck storage area. This tenant doesn't need that much truck storage. So they intend to just vacate the easements that were underneath this parking lot. So building 3 can shift over, and that they don't need the big of an easement area anyway. So it'll all wrap around the other side of building 3.
Okay.
And what you do is you make a recommendation under the city ordinance. A petition to vacate a public way or a platted easement is forwarded to the Plan Commission and also to the Board of Works and Safety for a recommendation on the petition to the council, because it is actually vacated by ordinance, and there will be a public hearing before the common council. And there was a motion prepared that tracks what the criteria is under the statute if someone were to appeal it and try to stop the vacation. So.
Okay. So there is a motion prepared.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
So how long has the easement been in place?
A matter of months.
Oh, okay.
So the way our plating usually works is when somebody does a primary plat, that very first secondary plat to actually split up the land, they do the whole subdivision.
Yeah.
So then we get into some circumstances like this one where things have changed along the way, but since it's legally platted, they have to go through the vacation process if they want to change anything.
Okay.
So the Board of Works are made their recommendation to the council.
Right, the Board of Works and Safety recommended favorably.
Okay.
Granted.
So there's been a motion. Any more questions or comments? Okay. There's been a motion prepared.
Mr. President, regards to PC 2021-021 petition to vacate platted drainage easement, Lot 2, Worsville Commercial Center, Phase 2. I move to find that the vacation of the 20-foot platted drainage easement located near the northeast corner and along the east boundary line within Lot 2, Worsville Commerce Center, Phase 2 in the city of Greenwood as proposed would not, 1, hinder the growth or orderly development of the neighborhood in which it is located or to which it is contiguous. 2, make access to the property by means of public way or access to necessary utilities difficult or inconvenient. 3, hinder the public's access to a church, school, or other public building or place, or hinder the public's access to utilities, nor 4, hinder the use of a public way by the neighborhood in which it is located or to which it is contiguous. That the Advisory Plan Commission recommend that the 20-foot platted drainage easement be vacated as proposed, and to authorize the president to execute and deliver a memorandum regarding these findings and the recommendation of the Common Council in the Commission's behalf.
Motion by Mr. Shaw, second by Mr. King. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay. Second item, PC 2021-043, learning experience landscape waivers. Who is here for that petition?
Eric Williams.
Okay. Go ahead and state your name and address for the record, please.
Eric Williams, 607 Shelby Street, Detroit, Michigan, Suite 200.
Okay. And go ahead and proceed.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, good evening. Thanks for having us tonight. So we are here tonight on behalf of the applicant, Bradford Jacobs Greenwood LLC. We are seeking waiver approval for 2 separate landscape requirements. One is for the landscape buffer depth, when we're adjacent to residential zoning, and the other would be the location of foundation plantings along the public right of way. So I'm sure some of you recall, but the proposed plan is a 10,000 square foot daycare center located at 1565 West Smoky Row Road, just northeast of the Kroger. We were previously in front of you guys for a parking waiver that was approved. So we've gone through the process with Dale and his team and uncovered 2 additional waivers here, and obviously need to get those cleared up before we can continue forward. So the first waiver is a request to essentially relocate the required foundation plantings from being directly adjacent to the building to approximately 6 feet from the building facade. And this really stems from the need to keep children contained within the fenced off area as they go to and from the play area. So this is directly along the north elevation or along Smoky Row Road. So there are 2 to 3 classroom doors that exit out on that facade. And as a part of their operational plan, TLE has a 4-foot PVC vinyl fence that keeps children, within the limits and confines of the sidewalk area. And so really all we're asking for is to take the plantings that would typically be or potentially be within that, that screened area and place them on the exterior of the fence. So again, all the required plantings will be planted. They'll just be shifted approximately 6 feet from the building. And I think the only other thing to keep in mind is that if they were planted directly adjacent to the building, you wouldn't even be able to see them from the right of way. So we think this is really beneficial for the city and then also our tenant. The second waiver request is to reduce the required landscape buffer when you abut residential properties. So I'm sure you guys have seen it. The construction is ongoing of the apartments that are to our east and to the south. And so there is a 30-foot required buffer yard there. In laying out the site and looking at how, everything is set up between the parking, the buildable area, and then ultimately where our play area falls, we encroach within the 30-foot buffer. The city does allow for a reduction in that, but we are asking for a greater reduction. And really there's a few reasons. One, There's, I believe it's about a 400-foot wide detention pond directly to our east. And I believe that serves about the 112 acres that was master planned previously. So obviously that pond isn't ever going to move. And so that in itself provides a significant buffer. The second part is, similarly to the 4-foot fence that we have along our north elevation, the entire play area is enclosed by a 6-foot PVC fence. And that's really where the bulk of our encroachment lies, is along the eastern property line. It's about 110 feet by 30 feet. And so that entire portion lies within this required buffer yard. But I would like to note that the building itself is actually set back 31.5 feet or so along that eastern property line. So none of the building actually encroaches. It's really just the play area that encroaches within the buffer. And then similarly to the frontage, or the foundation landscaping, we're also providing the required number of trees. I think it's 9 evergreen trees, 7 ornamental trees, and then a number of shrubs to, again, green that area up and really meet the intent of the ordinance, but still utilize that area. So again, thanks for having us, and happy to answer any questions.
I do have one question. As far as percentage and all that for the landscaping, is that still being managed, just being moved around?
Yes, they're meeting all their quantities. It's just the locations we're talking about.
Okay. And what was the planning department's recommendation on that?
Oh, we recommend approval of both requests.
Any questions or comments? All right, there's 2 motions that are prepared. Take the foundation landscaping first. That was the first one you presented.
Mr. President, regarding PC 2021-043 landscape waiver request, proposed child care center, I move that the request of Stonefield Engineering and Design LLC for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Acceptable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping and Buffering. I, buffering that supplies a minimum 30 feet wide landscape.
Read the other one.
Is
It's
it
foundation plan.
These are
One's
foundation-
different from
there's two,
G,
yeah.
foundation
It's in the
plan.
foundation.
pause on that one?
Okay.
Same PC 2021-043 landscape waiver request proposed child care center. I move that the request of Stonefield Engineering Design for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Acceptable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping Buffering. G, Foundation Plantings. It specifies that the commercial properties under 25,000 square feet in gross floor area shall have a minimum 10 feet wide landscaping strip along the full length of the foundation facing the street to permit no landscaping strip along the foundation, and the relocation of the required landscaping strip to an area outside the fenced walkway be approved, and that the Planning Commission find the Stonefield Engineering and Design LLC has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, Section 10-04-05I, for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for waiver and as presented.
Motion by Mr. Shell and second by Mr. King. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Right now, the other.
As I was previously saying, PC 2021-043 landscape waiver request, proposed child care center. I move that the request of Stonefield Engineering and Design LLC for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, Generally Acceptable Regulations, Section 10-03-06, Landscaping and Buffering. I, buffering that specifies a minimum of 30 feet wide landscape buffer at the perimeter of commercial, medium use, and residential multi-unit complex properties to permit reduction of the width of the landscape buffer to 7.3 feet and use of the remaining 22.7 feet for an outdoor play yard be approved, that the plan commission find that Stonefield Engineering and Design LLC has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, section 10-04-05I for the waiver, for the reasons set forth in its request for waiver and as presented.
Second. Motion by Mr. Shell and second by Mr. Schrader. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carried. All right. Thank you, Mr. Williams. Good luck.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the evening.
Yep, thanks. All right. Next order of business is PC 2021-064 Emerson Point Landscape Waivers. Who will be presenting for this evening?
I will be Jennifer Lewis with the Garrett Company.
Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Sure. Jennifer Lewis with the Garrett Company, 1051 Greenwood Springs Boulevard, Suite 101, Greenwood.
Proceed.
Thanks for your time this evening. We've come before you with 3 petitions for landscape waivers. The first one is in reference to the buffer yard to the west of us. Emerson Point is a proposed 218 unit multifamily complex that sits just to the south of the Emerson Point Retail Center, and directly to our west is the airport and the airport runway within 500 feet. And to the east of us is Wilson Drive, which is a private drive that leads out to Emerson Avenue. The buffer yard planting landscape waiver that we're requesting is along this red highlighted area that you can see on the screen. The typical buffer yard is a combination of 4 canopy trees per 100 lineal feet and 3 ornamental trees per 100 lineal feet, and then 15 shrubs per 100 lineal feet. Our request is to change the species type and to install only ornamental trees along this buffer yard. And this is mainly due to the fact that we are so close in proximity to the airport and the runway. We are trying to limit the number of birds that could potentially cause a hazard or a safety hazard or nest in those trees. So ornamental trees typically are shorter height at their maturity than what a canopy tree would be. So that is our first request.
Okay.
Our second request is the streetscape along the east side of the property. This site is bordered on the east side by 2 easements. One is a utility easement that runs directly in front of the property, and which is 27 feet wide. And the other is an access easement, which runs to the back side of that particular easement. So they're stacked on top of each other, running in front of our site, which the front of our site is the highlighted area. And we are asking to simply relocate what would have been the street trees that would have, per the landscape ordinance, they would have actually been constructed within the utility easement. So we're asking that we simply relocate them to the back side of that, which runs along the frontage of the property on the back side of the sidewalk. And then the third and final petition that we're asking for is there is 4 detached garage structures that lie within our 218 unit multifamily development. And one of those garages, which is highlighted in purple, sits within a parking island. So it's bordered on the back side by surface spaces. And there is currently a requirement that would require us to put landscaping behind every detached garage. However, to maintain the drive aisle on both sides, we don't have room for that landscaping buffer between the structure and those surface spaces. So we're asking to relocate what would have been the landscaping behind that and place it elsewhere on the site. And those are our three requests for landscape waivers. Thank you.
What was the staff's recommendation?
We recommend approval of all three. There are some definite limitations being adjacent to the airport and want to be
Right.
respectful of that. And with the streetscape on the front and the easements overlapping one another, there was a narrow place to put these without going into an easement. So it was a matter of, is it better to approach this board for a landscape waiver or to approach the Board of Public Works and Safety for an encroachment to put the trees in with the sanitary? So going through this mechanism, we didn't put the trees in with the sanitary.
Or the lesser of two
More
evils.
or less.
I understand. Any questions from the commission? None?
Was or is it necessary to contact the FAA due to proximity?
I believe your companies is working through the FAA approval and that they have to get a, don't know what the official rule is, but they do need a determination on this.
Thank you. I think we get that as part of the, and we heard this the first time, but for the plat.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right, so we'll do, the first one is the, for the buffering, public buffer yard plan, yes.
Mr. President, regard to PC 2021-064 landscape waiver request, Garrett Companies, Emerson Point. I move that the request of the Garrett Companies for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscape and buffering, buffering that specifies a minimum of 4 canopy trees per 100 linear feet within a 30-foot wide median landscape buffer to permit 7 ornamental trees per 100 linear feet within the west buffer yard of its property adjacent to the Indy South Greenwood Airport to reduce overall height of plantings be approved, that the Plan Commission find that the Garrett Companies has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code Section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in this request for waiver and as presented.
Motion by Mr. Shell and seconded by Mr. Walker. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Okay, next one would be the perimeter parking garage landscaping. The next one's parking garage. That's not what you did. Yeah, then the streetscaping was the last one. Wasn't it?
That's not the way she presented them.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm going by it.
Streetscaping, and then she did the garage.
That's fine. I was going by the agenda.
I was making numbers on it.
Yeah.
Presented. Mr. President, PC 2021-064 landscape waiver request, Garrett Companies, Emerson Point. I move that the request of the Garrett Companies for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, H, streetscaping, that specifies planting 1 tree per 40 linear feet of frontage in a front yard, no closer than 3 feet from the back of a sidewalk, to permit planting of some of the requested trees closer than 3 feet to the sidewalk, to keep the plantings outside a 27-foot drainage and utility easement be approved, and that the Plan Commission find that the Garrett Companies has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and is presented.
Motion by Mr. Shell and second by Mr. Walker. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign, motion carries. And then the last one, perimeter parking interaction.
President, regard to PC 2021-064 landscape waiver request, Garrett Companies Emerson Point. I move at the request of the Garrett Companies for a waiver of the requirements of the Unified Development Ordinance, Greenwood Municipal Code, Chapter 10, Article 25, Division 3, generally applicable regulations, Section 10-03-06, landscaping and buffering, J, parking lot landscaping, 3, perimeter parking garage landscaping, that specifies a minimum of 5 feet wide landscaped area with continuous row of trees and shrubs at the perimeter of a parking garage to permit relocation of the required quantity of trees and shrubs to parking islands near the detached garage structure be approved, and that the Planning Commission find that the Garrett Companies has met the criteria set forth by Greenwood Municipal Code, section 10-04-05I for the waiver for the reasons set forth in its request for the waiver and as presented.
Second. Motion by Mr. Shell, second by Mr. King. All those in favor of that motion signify by raising your right hand. All those opposed, same sign, motion carries. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
You're welcome. Okay. Next order of business would be the camp rezone, but that's been extended or been continued. So we will hear that on the public meeting of the 25th. Any new business from the floor?
The only thing I would bring up is we circulated the council's virtual meeting rules. I don't know if there's any questions on those, or if you would like us to amend those to your rules.
What's that? You sent that, Dan.
You emailed them like Thursday, didn't you?
Right.
I think, last Thursday.
I think at least one.
Last Wednesday.
6th. All back. All back. Is there any questions or comments on what Mr. Davis had sent?
And if you want to think about it, under a public health emergency for the rest of October, because the governor can do it for 30 days and then has to renew, so you could still participate electronically if you would like to. It's only after there's not a designated health emergency, you would need a policy to allow folks to participate electronically. So if you want to think about it and maybe give direction the next meeting, there's time to do so since we
Okay.
meet again the 25th of October.
Right.
Probably best to wait just in case the governor does extend, it's not necessary.
Well,
But
at
if
some
you
point, we're
wanted
gonna have
to
it
do
on
it,
record.
you would have a policy in place, so.
Did everybody receive it? Everybody's got it? Okay. So let's give that some serious thought over the next 2 weeks, and then we'll make an action on it. Go ahead and put it on the agenda.
Yeah.
That way we'll have it. Be reminded.
Absolutely.
And then we'll open up the discussion. Then. Okay. Any other questions, comments, announcements?
We do have business for our next meeting on that note, so I will see you all on the 25th.
In addition to camp rezone.
Correct.
All right. Any other announcements, questions, comments? Seeing
Move
none,
we adjourn, sir.
meeting adjourned.